Okay, so I'm going to show you guys how to file your piece. I'm going to talk about the files initially, and then I'll show you actually how to start filing with this piece right here. This is nickel. We no longer offer nickel as an option, but this is just a piece I had laying around, so I'm going to show you how to file on that. So as far as the files go, you guys are going to have the option of using a large file and then a needle file, which is the smaller one right here. Both of these are half round, which means that they are round on one side and then flat on the opposite side. So, and that's the case with both this large one and this small one. Now the difference on the shapes, the only difference really is that the small needle file has like actual point on here, whereas the large one just has sort of a blunt edge. Now, the thing to keep in mind about these files is that these files can only cut in one direction. So the way that these are designed, I'm going to try to kind of hold this up so it's easier to see the lines on here, but you can kind of feel it with your finger. They are designed to only cut in one direction. So when you are filing, you can only file going away from you. So when you're filing something, you don't want to be moving that file back and forth like this, because you're doing a couple things. One, you're only actually filing when you're going this way, so it's making it when you go this way pointless. The other thing is too is that when you actually go this way, the wrong way with your file against the metal, that you're actually dulling the cuts on the file, so you're actually making it even harder for you to do anything when you do go in the right direction. So when you file, you want to make sure you're always going away from you like this, okay? So, and that's going to be the same with the small file too, the needle file. So again, you will always be filing away from you. The other thing to keep in mind about these files is that it doesn't just cut on the top and on the bottom, but it also cuts here too along this edge. So this is also cut too, so you do need to keep in mind that when you are filing and you have like your file in a corner like this, I'm going to try to kind of move this so it's a little bit easier to see. But when you have your file kind of in a corner like this, you need to keep in mind that this corner is filing whatever it's touching. So that's something that sometimes catches people surprise, and it's not a good surprise, it's actually a bad surprise when that happens. So be careful with that. Okay, so you can either start filing your inside edges or your outside edges first. It doesn't really matter which way you go. When you're filing your outside edge, I highly recommend that you use the large file, because large file just is a tougher file, and it actually files a little bit faster because of that reason. So what you're going to do is you're going to actually work on filing the edges flat first, so perfectly flat, and then after you get that done, then you're going to bevel. Okay, so, and I'll talk about beveling here in a little bit, but beveling is a term you guys have heard more than once, and we used it actually on the ceramics project when we would cut and put two walls together. So if you guys remember how we cut those corners off so they would lay flat when we overlap them, and then we also too beveled the bottom edge of that ceramics project. So I'm going to use this on this too. So what you're going to do first, you're going to take the file against the piece. I'm going to hold the piece like this in my hands. It's going to be hard to show you how to do it like this. So I'm going to hold it like this, okay? You want to have a good grip on the metal piece. Now you want to make sure that when you are holding it, that you're not actually bending it at the same time. So this goes back to like when we talked about making sure our metal bridges weren't too small. Now I do like to anchor my project a lot of times on the tabletop surface. And I'll kind of zoom in on this a little bit so it's a little bit easier to see. Then let me kind of refocus this so it's a little bit easier. See if I can go a little bit more. There we go. Okay. So, all right, so when you do this, I do like to anchor it on here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to basically file one edge at a time. So I'm going to start here at the beginning of the file, at the beginning of the edge, at the top of the file like this. So I've got it anchored like that, and then what I'm going to do is as I file, I'm going to move down the file and down the edge at the same time like this. So I'm just going to do that. Now when you first start this on a freshly cut surface, it's going to be a little hard to get started. You're going to get stuck a lot, and that's fine, but as you file, it will go a bit smoother, okay? So you're just going to keep doing this until you get the whole thing filed straight and flat, okay? Now here's the thing, if you file like this, you want to be careful about filing like this, because what's going to happen is if you just file in one place at one time, which there is a time and place to do that, but if I were to do that on this edge right here, I would actually cut a notch out of this with the file. You don't want to do that. I want this to all be one uniform edge here, nice and smooth. So because of that, I am going to, again, I'm going to start at the top of the file at the beginning of my edge, and I'm going to file down the file and down the edge at the same time, and that's going to keep that smooth. Now because this is the outside, you can, and I do have some kids who like to kind of file like this too. So they just go the whole length of the file and the whole length of the edge. You can do that too. But again, keep in mind, take in consideration, look at how I'm only moving in one direction. Okay, I'm not going back and forth. Because again, remember, you're going to hurt the file, you're going to dull it, and you're only actually making 50% of your efforts usable. Okay, so I'm going to do that until it's nice and flat. Okay, and I've actually already filed this, so you can kind of see. One of the things that you look for when you're looking to see if you're done is you want to hold it up to the light, and you want to see if you see any bumps or divots or grooves. A lot of times those bumps and divots, those low areas, are a little bit darker. Or if it's hard to see, because sometimes it can be just all really shiny, I take my nail along it and I try to feel for bumps. And again, if my nail gets stuck, if I stumble upon a rough patch, then I know I need to go back and refile until it's nice and smooth. So, but I've already done this again, so this stuff has all been filed really flat. So I would do that to the outside, and then to bevel, what you're going to do, okay, so before I had this set up so that it's basically, I'm going to try to point like this, so that the file is flat and right on top of that edge like this. So now what happens is after you filed all these flat is now you've got these sharp corners on either side of your piece. Now I've actually already beveled this, so you won't see it so much on this. To bevel your edge, what you're going to do now, I'm going to try to hold this so that it's easy to kind of see. So I'm going to go from doing, this is kind of hard. I'm going to do this like this, right on top. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold my file right on top of that corner and at an angle. And now I'm going to file just that little corner off. And what that's going to do is going to take that short corner off. It's going to round it off. This is what beveling means. It's going to round it off, and it's going to make it more comfortable for whoever is going to wear this or hold this to actually handle it. So there's not going to be those sharp corners. I am going to do this not just on one side, but on both sides. Now again, how do you know when you're finished? Okay, you know when you're finished when you kind of see, this is kind of, might be hard to see on the screen here, but you want to see this kind of shiny outline all the way around your edges, okay? And you want to see like a consistent outline. So this is one of those times where an outline is good, okay? And you want it to be consistent. So you don't want to see like a really thick bevel or thick outline in one area and a thin in another, because that's just inconsistent. You need to be as consistent as possible with that, okay? So now, when you get into like corners like this where it's kind of hard, this is where you might need to use this small file, okay? So as you can see that this actually fits in really well into that little corner. So again, I'm only going to file away from myself until that's all nice and flat. And then after that's flat, then I can go in. So I'm no longer going to keep this, you know, straight on top or flat on top like that. So basically the file is perpendicular to the edge of the piece. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on an angle right on top of that corner. And with these corners, what I do is I just kind of roll it into that corner. I roll it, and that's going to, again, get that nice beveled edge there. And it doesn't take that long to get that. And I'm just going to kind of fix that right there. And so you can see how now it's getting nice and smooth and very consistent, okay? Now when you do the inside shapes, this gets a little harder, so this is where you're going to be spending a lot more of your time. These big files are typically too big to get in here, okay? So you're primarily going to be filing all your inside edges with just the small file. Now because this is a smaller file, these grooves are not as deep, so again, it takes more work to actually file this stuff down. So again, what I like to do, like if I'm filing a shape like this, I'm going to just spend some time just on this edge right here, file this so it's nice and smooth and flat, and then I might turn it, and then I might just focus on this corner again until it's nice and flat and even. Then I'm going to then do this part, make it, file it nice and flat, and incorporate the rest and do that. So I'm not going to try to do the whole shape all at once. I'm going to kind of break it down into sections so that way I can just, better focus my attention. I can pick up on any little divots or anything that needs a little bit more attention. So that is why I do it that way. So I never just kind of work on the whole shape all at once. I like to just focus on one part until that part is done. I don't move on. Okay, so that's again another way to just make sure you're being thorough and you're not forgetting anything. When you go fast or you try to file a huge shape all in one fell swoop, a lot of times you miss a lot of details. So again, you're going to file these edges nice and flat first, and then you do need to bevel. Okay, and you're beveling not just one side but also the other side too. So when you go through, just again, when you're beveling, you're putting your file now at an angle against that corner, and you should see a nice shiny outline around all of that, okay? And it should be consistent. Now, I will tell you that a lot of times I see kids, they do a great job filing everything flat, but when they go to bevel their edges, that's where things get messed up. A lot of times it's because they're not paying attention to, again, this very corner or the side of this. So like for example, if I am kind of beveling this right here, if I'm not paying attention, that's going to cut into this curve here and I'm going to mess that up. So then I have to go back through and fix that. So there is filing for you. If you have any questions, just let me know. But again, remember you're going to file your edges flat first. If you want to do that on the outside and on the inside edges first, you can do that, and then you can go back through and then bevel your outside edges and your inside edges last. So it's really up to you. So let me know if you have any questions.